All right, good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you again on today's Safeoclock Health and Safety Interactive Workshop. So we'll start with our presentation. I have a few slides to present, and after that, we'll go into the discussions. I intentionally limited my presentation to certain number of hazards so that there will be room for others to contribute. I don't want to extensively discuss everything since we are here to contribute. If I complete everything or if I say everything, then I'll be removing the room for others to contribute. So in a few minutes, I will talk about characteristics of tunneling works. Of course, you know, today we are talking about safety in tunnel construction. And I've been privileged to work in tunnel, metro tunneling projects. So I have a few years practical experience. So I'll be talking both from practical point of view and from other knowledge point of view. So I'll talk about characteristics of tunnel works. I will also look at some of the responsibilities of safety officer in tunnel construction. Then I'll look at some legal regulations in tunnel construction. Then I will then talk about few hazards that are associated with this activity. Okay, so tunneling works is majorly involved in construction of railways. There's some roads also, some irrigation, some bridges, some underpasses. So this type of constructions could involve tunneling. That is in a situation whereby there will be drills that will entail that the above or of that tunnel will be covered, but the under will be open. So that is what we refer to as tunneling. So in this type of situation, we have clustered workspace. This is also characterized by wet and slippery surface because during the tunneling, a lot of water will be used for tunneling for those drilling machines. So that surface will be very slippery. And when the tunnel has gone far, there will be artificial lighting. So you will be depending on artificial light. You'll be depending on the light inside the tunnels. So that makes it a specialized form of activity whereby you are not using natural light. So this type of light will be very useful. Now, it's always characterized by inadequate ventilation because it's an enclosed area, it's an enclosed surface or enclosed place. So there's going to be poor ventilation. There could be presence of hazardous gases. There could also be some explosives, especially if explosives were used during the blasting or during the tunneling. There could be presence of explosives. There could be some mucks, that is the sand or the excavated soil that we are removed that could lead to accidents. So these are some of the characteristics of a tunneling work. Let me talk about the responsibilities of a safety personnel in this type of activity. First, at the pre-construction phase, the safety officer should prepare a comprehensive risk assessment, should conduct a risk assessment, should have an available health and safety plan, should conduct trainings for all the teams that will be involved in the activity, should also do pre-equipment inspection. Then during the construction phase, the safety officer will be involved in site inspections, safety inspections. He will also be involved in hazard identification controls, all these daily routine, The safety officer also will be involved in emergency response. He will be planning, coordinating emergency response in case there is emergency in the tunnel. What are the means? How will people be evacuated and how will people escape? So he'll be involved in planning, coordinating, and being part of the emergency planning activity. The safety officer will also ensure that there is adequate compliance to that legal requirements within the vicinity or within that locality. He will also be involved in incident investigations. If there's accidents in that workplace, he will be involved. Safety meetings and workers' committee meetings, he will also be involved. Then after the construction phase, he will be involved also in the inspections. He will conduct post-inspections. So before handover to the client, these inspections will involve not just hazards and explosive. We'll be looking at the environmental factors as well. We'll be looking at adequate lighting. We'll be looking at temperatures. We'll be looking at emergency evacuation routes or emergency evacuation shafts. So these are part of post-inspections that will be conducted after the construction. Then documentation will ensure that the documents are all accurate and are kept as at till the time that it should be. Now, if there are some lessons learned, performance evaluations, then he can be part of this. Okay, so let's look at few legal regulations that is applicable to tunnel construction. We have OSHA 3115, which is for underground construction of tunnel. So this standard is majorly specifying the type of equipment required, the type of inspections required, and the competency of people that will operate this equipment. It also specified the duration that the tunnel can be constructed. It also specified the number of equipments that can be under the ground at a particular time. So because the requirement will not, the legal requirement will not allow you to bring in 20 tunnel boring machines at the same time at a particular place because of earthquakes, because of vibration. So this can cause a lot of underground discomfort. So this regulation, OSHA 3115, regulates this standard and this type of activities involved in tunnel construction. So as well as ISO 14001, which deals with environmental factors. So like during the tunnel boring, the underground water will be affected. In most cases, they will do piping. They will be draining water before they will start this boring, because they need to reduce the water level to below the level of that the tunnel. So in that instance, you see that the water body will be affected. So ISO 14001 will come in place to regulate the amount of or the level of disturbance you are going to disturb the environment, the dust, when the explosive will be used, the environmental impact of that explosive on the environment. So these are what ISO 14001 will be looking at. ISO 45001 will be looking at the health and safety of the workers, the place, the workplace. So these are some of the standards that are applicable to tunnel construction activity. Now let's look at few hazards involved. So one of them is the drilling operations itself. So during the drilling, or we'll call it boring. So in this instance, there will be a machine, tunnel boring machine, stationed at a particular point, which will be drilling using the technology that involves water. So most recommended part of the boring or drilling is wet drilling. Using wet drilling involves that you wet the surface, the ground is wet with water, so that while you are boring, you are reducing dust and you are also reducing the level of vibration on the ground surface. So the drilling equipment must be in good condition. Wet drilling is recommended. Then the drill platforms should be well built and properly maintained. Then the drilling deck platform should be provided for the operators, and only authorized and trained operators should be allowed onto the drill deck. So there should be no misfires. Charging of the drill holes and the drilling shall not be carried out simultaneously. So at a particular time, when the drilling is ongoing, there should be no removing of sand or removing of the muck. So it's done one at a time. While the drilling has been completed, or maybe while the drilling has gone to a particular extent, then the tunnel machine will be stopped or will be paused. Then you can start removing accumulated dust, accumulated waste, and try to keep the bit or the drilling bit safe and clear. Let's look at another hazard that's associated with this activity. Is explosives and blastings. Now, in most situations, before you start the drilling or the boring, you need to get to a particular depth, or you need to go deep so that you'll be able to position the machine. The machine cannot start drilling from the surface. The machine needs to go under. So before you have a space, or you have create a very conducive space for the machine to be positioned, then you need to, in some cases, you need to blast. You need to bring up explosive that will help you to excavate faster. Because if you are using the excavators, it might take you time, and depending on the strength or the texture of the soil, it will take time for you to penetrate. So, like during the tunnel construction in Qatar, we use explosives. But this explosive, of course, you know that they are regulated. You can't just bring explosive from anywhere or any time and start using. So you must go through the authorities, get the approval, and even during the blasting, the authorities will be around. They will create barriers, restricted exclusive zones, and only authorized people are allowed to do that blasting. So that is to, first of all, create a better platform, a better space for the tunnel boring machine to be positioned. So you use this blasting to make the excavation easier. So the risk, pre-blasting, there should be proper planning. You have risk assessment. You should identify the people who can be exposed and the risk associated with this. Not just the sound, not just the sound or the vibration. Another very important risk, or another hazardous risk, is this the chemicals or the fumes coming out of this blasting. Is very choking, and it can lead to some ill health if not properly controlled. So competent personnel, only the people that are trained, that are competent in handling this explosive, are allowed. Proper storage. Storage, while we were doing, when we used the explosive during the construction of Qatar Metro, it was transported directly from where the CID kept these things. So from that location, it comes to the site. Immediately after the blasting, the civil defense team, they take it directly with those contractors together with them and they remove it immediately from the site. So there is no storage area in the site. You can't store this. It was not allowed to store any atom of those explosive in the site. So proper storage should be maintained. Clear communication. We use walkie-talkie to ensure that all the people involved in the emergency response are all communicating and the areas are well cordoned off. There was a siren that will blow like 5 minutes before the blast, before the explosive is blast. So this siren will raise alarm to ensure that everybody within that vicinity have evacuated. So that gives clear communication to ensure that everybody is aware that it's time for blasting. And that siren will keep blowing like after 5 minutes. When the siren is down, the next thing you hear is the blast. So there should be proper communication before the blasting. Now, during the blasting operation, everyone should keep a safe distance. Even the people operating the detonators, they will also be at safe distance. They are not immune to the hazards or the risk associated. So they will maintain, I think, about 300 meters. They will be very far away from where the blasting will be happening. Ventilation, there should be proper ventilation, and blasting is recommended not to be done inside the tunnel. If you have started boring, you cannot blast again. So it should be in an open area so that the dust could easily evaporate out. So ground stability, before the blasting, the entire area should be properly checked to ensure that it will be able to carry out, should be able to withstand the force coming with that blast. So misfires, there's possibility of misfires. So how to handle those misfires should be properly communicated, and how to recover misfire, because this is one of the major risks associated with this blasting or use of this explosive. You might have implanted like 5 or 6 explosives, and when you have detonated, only 3 will explode. So what happens? The other ones that did not explode is what we know as misfire. So when misfire happens, you see that the trained people, they might go for recovery. And in the process of going to recover this explosive, then it will explode. That is one of the risks associated with this activity. So while the explosion is going on, they are counting. Sometimes you can miscount. Maybe you have counted 5. You think that is complete, whereas it's only 4 that exploded. Then when you are going back to recover some of those ones that did not explode, then it explodes in the process. So it's one of the risks, and we should have proper plan on how to deal with misfires, and how to, in the process, how to deal with unexploded charges. Now, after the blasting, the post-blasting procedure, what do? You need to inspect the entire area, check if everybody is okay, because some people could be affected by the sound. Some people could even have a temporary deafness. So you do like routine around the inspection. Maintain ventilation. Ensure that the ventilation is adequate so that everywhere will become clear again. Then debris removal, only the authorized team or the authorized contractor are allowed to go to remove the debris from the blast. Then be aware of secondary explosions. Secondary explosions is exactly what I explained, that after the blasting, there is possibility of having some misfires or some of the explosives that did not explode, exploding in the process. So those are part of the hazards that we can deal with. Okay, so just like I said, I will not be talking about every other thing. So I will stop here, and I will give room for others to contribute. I know David is here. David Nzelu is here. We worked in tunnel. So I know others will also have the other things to contribute. So thank you for your time.
Yes, good evening all.
Good evening.
It's true, I actually started my safety profession in the metro construction field. Okay, it's a good experience and it's a good way to start your profession in the state of Qatar, the metro sector. But I want to share some experiences I had. Actually, I was not working there, but my friends who were working in that field, they had a very bad ordeal. This happened when they were carrying out hot work in a tunnel. This was carried out by a very big contractor here in Qatar, popularly known for roadworks. So while they were carrying out hot work inside the tunnel, suddenly there was fire, and all the people who were inside that tunnel, no one made it out alive. This happened about 3 years ago, around that COVID-19 era. So when this happened, both the safety manager and the safety responsible for that location, the project manager, and also the construction manager, the engineer, all of them were taken by the police, and they had to go there and make their statement. And all this happened because proper procedure and protocols were not followed for tunneling or underground works. Okay, there were the presence of some materials inside the underground works, inside the tunnel, which were flammable. So while they were carrying out this hot work, they failed to ensure that proper testing, death testing was carried out in the place, and also proper housekeeping in the area. Because one of the major issues associated with tunnel works is access. There is limited access for entry and exit. So when something happens in the tunnel or during metro work, evacuation is a very big challenge, except if it is pre-planned. So evacuation was very difficult at that instant because even before the people could flee for safety, the fire consumed them all. It was a very sad ordeal. Then coming back to metro, it's been a debate and I want us to shed more light on it. It has to do with how do we categorize the metro tunnel? Is it an open confined space or should be classified as a closed confined space? I will expect to get a clarification on this from you people. And also one major thing from my experience when we work in this metro is this tally board. This gives an account of everyone entering into the tunnel and when they leave the tunnel. This will show the tally board man how many people are inside and how many people left at a given point in time. So this tally board is also very, very important to be placed anywhere we have works in the metro or underground work to give a very precise record and number of people working inside the tunnel at a given point in time. And also another major issue in the tunnel work, like you rightly said before, is illumination and also access. So what happened in this metro is that the people who are designated to work in the metro, they use a certain kind of lights which uses solar power. So they are to always have these on their helmets or on their clothes this reflects light when they are in the tunnel. So anyone from any distance you are from them, you can easily sight them. You can easily see these people. You can always know that, okay, we have people from how many meters away. These are people coming in this direction. And also it gives a proper indication for incoming vehicle or equipment moving in the tunnel that they should proceed with caution. So if I choose to say my experience in the construction field, I can go on and on and on because it was a very delightful experience and it's a very wonderful experience for me to be a partaker of this mega project in the state of Qatar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. Thank you for adding your voice to the topic. All right, let's hear from others.
Yeah, let me just say one or two few things with respect to what Mr. David just said. Yeah. So, okay, I will start with the incident he talked about that happened in one of the projects during COVID time. I could remember during that period also, just for security's sake, I happened to go for an interview for this company. So I even met the corporate HSC manager. And after going through the manager, the project, the construction, the safety manager for the project, then we got to meet the corporate HSC managers at that time. So I think me and one of my friends. So I think that interview happened immediately, I think after the incident. So I think one of the questions he now asked us was he brought that incident as a scenario, scenario question, and was like asking, he just was telling us the story, telling me the story. So what he was not asking me what could be, what could be the hazard, things and stuff like that in such kind of tunneling work activity. So which for me, I started giving my points and all that and all that. So it was later after the interview when I now spoke with the manager, with the HSC manager, then he now told me it was because of the recent experience they had in one of their projects, that people got burnt, So it's actually a sad one. That is why it is very important as an health and safety professional, we try our best to do our own part in order for people to work safely. And basically, I think Mr. David was saying something about tunneling. Is it an open or a closed confined space? If I will go by my residual knowledge, I would say it's an open confined space in the sense that because we cannot categorize a tunneling activity to be an activity like somebody who is going into a sewer, who is going into a drainage system. Like in that case, we know that even the entry and exit is more restricted, right? That is why when you look at the definition of a confined space, limited entry and exit, you see that the place is not even designed for human occupancy. So sometimes you might have this free access to go in, but then such a space might not be for human occupancy, because when you look at a large tunnel, for example, you discover that it might be very long in length and to an extent wide in width or whatever, which can accommodate you as at the time you are doing the job. But when you look at the entire place generally, it's still confined, from the word of English, because even the rooms we stay are confined. Imagine that in our room we don't have AC. So you could imagine how disastrous it could be. And maybe you are not doing some activity that you don't have ventilation, you are doing some kind of limited oxygen, you know, and maybe explosive chemicals are there, and you decide to light a gas, you know, things like that, or smoke cigarettes inside. So you discover that in such situation, a lot of incident can happen. So I think that's my take regarding that open and closed confined space, though I stand to be corrected. Like I said, I'm trying to make use of my residual knowledge. And Mr. Johnson have said a lot, because when we look at most of all this activity, they are just few that are not peculiar with other construction work activity we are doing, especially that involve explosive. We know what explosive is all about. We know it's going to affect the earth surface. Just like he said, you cannot do such an explosive when the boring or the current system has already occurred, because that might even cause a collapse of the entire internal system. So that need to be done from the initial stage of the project in order to get access for the equipment to begin to do the coring and the boring stuff and all that. So basically, generally, what he have said regarding the hazard are things that we are much familiar with. And one thing as an health and safety practitioner is that even if for the first time you are getting engaged in such kind of project, that is why as a professional, we need to engage in a lot of research. You know, we might not be familiar with these things, but with the, you know, with the age of technology, we are exposed to all sorts of information that we need. Unlike those days that there was nothing like Internet of Things. Now there are Internet of Things. Everything is at our disposal. Every information that we need are there. You know, so for me, like I always do, that is where I get my experience. Like there was an interview I attended. I said, I might not have an experience in this industry, but there is no industry I cannot work. What I need is my basic knowledge and my ability to research and get information. And part of the research, part of the information is just what we are doing today. You know, it might be a kind of professional discussion, it might be a webinar, it can be a seminar, it can be going to the internet and get a lot of information, which could really help. And most importantly, also, one thing I want to mention is that when you are doing this kind of all this tunneling work and all that, I think a comprehensive environmental impact assessment, sorry, excuse me, so need to be done, because there are a lot of the environment aspect that this project is being affected. So it is very important that we, if it is not done, because I don't have that experience in tunneling, but at least maybe for those who are there, maybe they can confirm that such kind of impact assessment is being done. But if not, these are things that we should also be introducing, because the integrity of the soil, of the environment, you know, is very important, and other fauna and flora within the environment are also need to be taken into consideration and all that. So for me, this is what I have to contribute. I will leave the space for other people to make one or two contribution and experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stephen. Thank you for your wonderful contribution. All right, let's hear from others. Mr. Mike, you joined today after I won't say a long time, maybe about 4 weeks you've not joined. So let's hear from others. Pascal, David, Indonesia, if you are still awake, can add your voice so we can round off.
I'm awake, but tunneling is not my area of expertise, so I'm just here to grasp the knowledge. It's quite interesting so far. I believe I've learned some few things. Thanks.
Thank you, brother. Okay, Mike, are you saying something? Like I said from the beginning, that I was not going to talk about all the hazards at the same time. So from time to time, I will bring in one. Now, there is what we know as, what do we call it? We'll call it during the tunneling, you know, the tunnel boring machine will be boring, making holes, and he'll be moving forward. So while he's making holes, he's creating a suspended surface. He's creating suspension on the top. Now, that suspension need to be properly braced. It needs to be properly supported. Okay, so that is where a precast frame or a precast material is used to support those things, and it's being done as the machine is moving. So this machine is prepared in such a way that it has some carriages, it has a section that fixes the precast, it has a section that pulls out the sand, it has a section that sucks the water into the tunnel bits. So while the boring is going on, they are fixing precast at the same time to be like in excavation. You need to have what do they call it, shoring. So it's a form of shoring to support those suspended floor, suspended ground from collapsing. So this is another session that another part that happens during that tunneling. And from safety perspective, one of our interest is to ensure that that precast is does not have any cracks, and it's not positioned wrongly. So because if it's not well positioned and if it's not well fixed, it can pull out and cause an incident or maybe cause collapse to that section of the tunnel. So that is one of the things that happens. Another thing that is important to safety, like David mentioned it before, is the body system, whereby there is a board or maybe a session where they have cards. You have a card that is issued to you after the training when you have undergone tunnel training. So you have that card that is issued to you, and when you are going inside the tunnel, you have to position your card on those tally boards, and you have a tally number you put inside your pocket. So while you are coming out, you need to bring out those tally numbers and take your card. So that helps the people managing the board to know how many people are inside the tunnel at any point in time. And it also helps to reduce the number of people going inside the tunnel, because even though the tunnel is big, but it can be congested. So in order to prevent congestion inside the tunnel, we have a number of people that is permitted to be inside the tunnel at the same time. Okay, then that is what the job of that tally system. It also helps in emergency evacuation planning. In case there's emergency, we can be able to take proper head count and know how many people are trapped and how many people are outside. Okay, so that is part of that. Then Stephen made mention of environmental impact assessment. This is very important. Like I said during my presentation, that there is during the construction in Qatar of that metro, there was continuous water pumping. They were removing water continuously until that project finished. They were pumping out water. So they did like drills of boreholes across those tunnels. Like I think each less than 1 kilometers, they have to drill and insert sumos that is pulling out water every second. So they don't want the tunnel to get flooded or for the water level to rise above where they expect it to be. So, and those machines have monitoring. They are monitoring it to also know the water level at any point in time. Then the environmental impact assessment is done and is also being reviewed from as the project progresses, because there's a particular stage it will get to and they have to change the forms of the activities, like when it gets to welding of those tracks. So hot work is involved, and some of those hot works are not ordinary brazing, they involve gas. So those assessments are also important at that point. Okay. Let's see who else wants to contribute something. Okay, so before someone remembers something else, there is I was thinking somebody will ask, how is the emergency evacuation done in the tunnel? Now, in the tunnel, they have emergency shafts. Even in this, our metro system now, that emergency shaft is functional. So I think about either 3 kilometers in between each of the in the tunnels. After each 3 kilometers, they will construct a shaft, an emergency shaft. So that shaft is used for evacuation. If there is power outage in the tunnel, or there is an emergency stop of the train, so people can use those shafts to leave the tunnel. So during the construction, through that shaft was where they brought in air inlet, like a supply of forced air, forced ventilation through those shafts inside the tunnel, and to increase ventilation in the tunnel. So if there is, when we do drill, emergency evacuation drill, people use those shafts, and it's very, very deep. It takes, before you can climb from there to up, it can take you more than 5 minutes. So it's something that is a very tedious activity to do. It's a very tedious thing to do, to evacuate from the tunnel through the shaft. But it's the only way out. In case of emergency, that is the only way out. People can leave the tunnel. Okay. Do we have any other contribution or any question so that we'll have a direction?
Yes, one more point that is very, 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 very important in the tunneling work is when they are doing demolition, like a partial demolition or shipping, because the sound produced from the tunnel is quite different from the sound that will be raised when you are in open ground. So those people who are engaged in demolition works or shipping works in the metro or in the tunnel, they use a specified kind of ear defenders. This one is going to reduce the sound to prevent it from affecting the ears and also affecting everybody who are working in that area. So all those who work in the tunnel, it's actually a mandatory requirement to always have your ear defenders with you. So ear defenders are always very important, and it's been made a mandatory practice for all those who are accessing the tunnel for works, especially those involved in demolition work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. Okay, do we have any other contribution, or we can call it a day? Okay, guys. So thank you for joining today. And I believe we've learned one or two things. So next week we will choose another topic to talk about. So remember, we are still dealing with industries, safety in different industries. So you can reach out to me if you want us to discuss a particular industry where you have a practical experience, so that we can give you the chance to lead the presentation. All right, so thank you for joining. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Afofem. Pascal, thank you. Andrew, I didn't know you were there. My God did there and I didn't hear his voice.
My brother, it's been a busy time for me. I'm still on the road, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's well.
That was a great session.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, bro. So thank you all for